Hey, I'm back. We're gonna do something called the Bishops of Opposite Color. We're doing a game from A. Repretz versus J. Gu Guo. This is in Ottawa, 2007. I don't know where that is. I apologize, but that's the place that it's in. So we'll call them reprint because it's something else. We're just gonna call them. We'll just call them that. And so this is a really interesting game that I went over. It's about the bishops of opposite color. Can you actually win in a bishops of opposite color? The answer is yes, and we will see right now. Come on. Sometimes my mouse glitches. We cannot have that. Okay. C5. White's attacking, if you notice, on the wing side. And so what you want to do is, if they're attacking on the wing, you want to attack in the center. That's just the principle of chess. If it's in the if you're doing it on the wing, if you're attacking on the wing, your opponent's more than likely going to attack in the center. So just be prepared for a counter attack like that. Kind of awkward playing, huh, guys? This is it doesn't say what rating these players are. This is from Reassess Jeremy Silman's Reassess Your Chess, 4th edition. So it just says their names, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing their name incorrectly. That's not my intent. So I ask that you forgive me for that. So let's continue onward. Okay, let's see. How do we do this? Okay, 7. We're at 7 now. Okay, you said bishop c5. C4. If you notice you notice that's being attacked there. So if this queen can be moved, you have a potential check and then taking of this bishop here. So there's a lot of play for white in this situation. Black's got to be really careful. Okay, the bishop takes knight is an interesting idea, because what happens is when that goes down, the queen takes, pawn takes, and if you notice the fracturing of the pawns. But you have to say to yourself, is black any better than white in this situation? We'll take a tally of all the imbalances in the position, because you need to at this point. It's got my mouth was a little dry. I'm better now. Okay. If you notice, let's look at the pieces. And I'm just putting circles around them. Okay. Black has the 2 bishops. Do you see that? So he has the light square, dark square bishop. White's got 2 knights and a light square bishop. So of course, you guys know what is the main idea here. If it's White's idea, he wants to keep the position closed because he's got 2 knights. Black's idea, you guys know, open up the position. And if he can't open up the position, make this dark squared bishop very superior. Make it count. Make it be the star of the game, because the white doesn't have a dark squared bishop, so black's got all the dark squares to play on. So you have to remember that if you have double bishops and they don't, remember the bishop that you have that they don't have, you need to play on the squares, like dark squares could be controlled by this one bishop by just going to D6, because he'll control all that, and that can't be stopped. There's no queen, and the knights have no way of getting there. It'd take them almost forever to get here. So here to attack that. So that's why the dark square bishop is cool. So that's what White looked at. He said to himself, do I have enough play here? He sacrificed his dark square bishop for a knight. The queen took the bishop, and then the queen took that, and then the pawn took here. So White's playing on the weaknesses of these right here. He's saying in the position, hey, position, I think for trading off my dark square bishop for giving black the double bishops, that this structure here and these pawn fractures are enough to counterbalance what I gave up. That's what you have to weigh, and that's how plans come into being. Plans come into being by decisions on the board. Like the board will tell you what to do. Like if in this situation, black's gonna either want to go here, here, or something like that. He wouldn't want to really go here at this moment because of blocking this pawn. So potentially this the bishop to g7, and if you notice, what does g7 attack? Right on through to the rook. So if the bishop got to g7, all he would have to do is play f5. f5 attacks this pawn. The bishop attacks along the diagonal at the rook of a1 to h8, and so he'll win a pawn because of that. So you have to look at these ideas. What like now you see the power of the dark square bishop. See, now it's playing on its most optimum diagonal. All that. Okay. Now that we've talked a lot about the imbalances, let's continue onward and see how each side helps make that opposition imbalance better for themselves. And the one who is the one who uses their imbalance better is the one who usually wins. Just makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, c3, knight c3. He's planning on going to d5 to attack those spots there, right there. So that's the imbalance in that position. So bishop d6 is forced because it stops the even though he comes here, that's not really a problem, because that could be easily taken care of with bishop to e5. That protects that and that. So, but this knight is outposted really good. So knight g, he played knight g e2. It would have been interesting to have played here. I am thinking, let's see, because then the bishop would actually have to play, like we're saying, to e5. This actually didn't happen. I'm just looking at the position for its entirety. So the bishop attacks that rook. So maybe castles. But now this pawn's being attacked. So I see now why he played knight g e2. Was to protect this pawn here and to prepare d6. d5. Knight d5. Bishop e. Remember, now he's using his star squared bishop to its greatest potential. It pins right on through to the rook. The bishop pins this knight right on through to the rook. So if somehow you can get a pawn there, maybe by here, and then here, you can win this knight, because the bishop pins to the rook. You'll win a rook or a knight for a pawn. So you just got to be on the lookout for your opponent's ideas. There's a reason for that. See, castle, kingside, queenside. What does that do? It takes away. Now this pin is not as powerful as it used to be, because it's not pinning a higher value piece. And this knight now has the ability to play knight to d5 again, which is White's idea. So, you know what? Black's got to watch out. Black's got to keep activity in his position. Because remember, he traded off for these two bishops. He traded off this broken pawn formation here. So he does not, remember what we talked about? When you look at the entirety of a structure, Jeremy Silman talked about pawn skeletons. One sec, I gotta get a drink of water, one sec. Pawn skeletons will tell you like how this is set up here. And then here, how this structure is set up, or how White's structure is set up here. We'll tell White where to attack. It'll also tell Black or White, do they want to stay in the middle game or do they want to head towards the end game? In this position, White would want to head towards the end game because these pawns here, these pawns here are weak. But you're saying, wait a second, what about this pawn here? Yeah, but if you look, there's only 2 pawn islands for White. How many for Black? 1, 2, and 3. 3 pawn islands. So there's 1 here, and there's 2. So 2. So who is better in an endgame? White. So now we know kind of what their ideas are, why they're moving their moves certain ways. Okay, d6. So he's trying to get this his light square bishop out. You know what's funny? The bishop kind of looks more like a glorified pawn. Knight d5 is actually good. This did one problem. When he moved the pawn, guys, remember the bishop was guarding the d7 square, so if the knight went here, it couldn't go there. When he played d6, the knight comes in, this square is open for a fork on the rook and the king because his bishop no longer guards it, which will make the king have to move. The king's got to move to d7. Let me see if I'm right. Yep, he goes d8. Sorry, d7's wrong. I forgot that it would block this bishop. So d8 stops, the king moves and prevents the knight from coming in. But remember, what did Black lose for these 2 bishops? Now you get to see he can't castle. White accomplished one of his goals, lock the position down. He's got a knight in d5. The knight stops these pawns from advancing on this side here. And it can't be kicked out because it's outposted. There's no pawn to kick it out. These pawns are fractured, so it really doesn't mean anything, even if this side's pawns fall. All this here. Yes, there's kind of a more of an open for his bishops, but this side is really locked up. So let's see how we do here. Oh, rook d f1. Yep, he's going after. So what White's going to try to do is go knight takes f6 because of the protection. There's 2. e6. Knight takes f6. There goes a pawn. Knight e7. Not knight. King e7. I get king and knight on the brain. Okay, check. Bishop takes. Bishop takes. Okay, bishop takes, bishop takes, bishop takes. Oh, a to f8. Oh, not a d8. Mouse slips. Okay, c3. Because he's going to want to play either that, or he could retreat back if he needs to. It all depends. He's leaving room. Knight d8, because he wants to swing in, and maybe something over here down, something like that. But his knight here is ridiculously placed, and he's more likely going to play b6 or maybe b5. Hey, no, I'm in my study center. This is a room specialized for all my studies, my work studies. Oh, that's just my. I sometimes put my stuff in here, so if I want to, wear something different, when I'm working, I have access to it. And I also don't want to put it with my other items, because these are like specialized ones that I wear that I don't want it to get messed up with or touched with other things. So, and I can keep track of all my coats, my dress coats. Let's see, alright. CD, alright. D4. Now you see the problem with moving the knight. What's the weakness? Here. The knight, when it was on C6, would have stopped. I'll show you. We'll just say that we'll have black move something like this. Now if that happens, see? That's the difference. But now that this knight is out of play, d4 is a very powerful move. Okay, c takes d, c takes d. Now white's got a humongous central position. He's got one open file that's to the king, so that is a weakness. He kind of now has, if you notice, he's got 3 pawn islands. So black has 4. So it's interesting. So if we can get into an end game, king versus king with these pawns here, white has a really, really good chance of winning because of his pawn majority in the center. D, C, C, oh, bishop G. Yeah, because he has to stay on this diagonal. This is getting. I like these. I like this game that I went over. It's really a fun one. You're gonna see it goes along with the bishops of opposite color, because if you notice, different colored bishops. And usually it's considered a draw with opposite colored bishops, because it usually gets down to maybe 1 pawn and then 2 different colored bishops. One bishop will sacrifice itself for the pawn, and then it gets a draw. But that's if it gets down to that way. You know what? These players know what they're doing. We don't know what rating they are, but they are playing rather well. They're taking advantage of each other's weaknesses. So that means they're to at least a certain level, and there's some really good games to learn from. So D2. Since we're getting it towards an end game, activating your king is okay, because there's no queens on the board. Black's position is really, really cramped. It's not really good, and the king might outpost on D3 to guard the D4 pawn, which will allow these 2 pieces freedom to move around. This knight is stuck to the defense of the B pawn and the pawn at F7. So black's in kind of a little bit of a sitch at this moment, that he's not really it doesn't really have a lot of mobility. Remember we talked, this also shows us last time we did something called cramped positions are I forgot, Jeremy Silman calls them closed. And if you're the one that's keeping your opponent cramped, or it can't move, you don't want to trade off pieces. You want to keep the position very, very cramped so that he has no movement. And black, if you notice, really doesn't have a lot of movement. He can't. The bishop would love to check, but guess what's guarding that spot? The rook. The bishop would love to come here. Potentially, you can get this pawn rolling up the board, and black can't play f6, f5, because of pawn takes. So white would win another pawn. These really don't do anything because the pawns here would just stop it, like we went over in our endgame. They would do a deep freeze. One of these pawns may play here, and it would stop this whole line. So black has to wait for the right time to break. He also has to trade off. His goal is to trade off pieces. Remember, if you're in a position that you're cramped, you want to trade pieces. If you're the one cramping, keep pieces on the board. Okay, let us 22. So we're now at knight to e6. Now there's a attack here, so the king's going to have to come up. Yep. So now this bishop has the permission to attack the b7 pawn. So black's going to have to take a move to stop that. Yep. So that's a tempo that now white can use. h4. What may happen is f to h1, which would target this pawn on h7. White's already one pawn up. This will make it 2 pawns, and then he'd be more than happy to go into an endgame with 2 pawns up. So the bishop of opposite color really wouldn't be too much of a drain on the system, because he would have 2 instead of 1. So the bishop would have to, how could it sacrifice itself for 2 pawns? It can't. It could only do 1. So bishop to f6, he's taking advantage of the position of the rook on h4. Oh, I'm sorry. Dang. I moved that wrong. Sorry, h5. That makes sense now. There we go. Some reason I thought h4. King, rook h4, not h5. Okay, bishop f6. Okay, now the idea of doubling up on these pawns, he's going to lose a pawn now. The only way that he will not lose a pawn is if he plays knight g5. Oh, he plays h6. Huh. Rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. Now, 2 pawns up. Now, white has no fear of going into an endgame now. Not a problem. He's got 5 pawns. Black's, oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was 2 pawns up. He's only 1 pawn. For some reason I thought 2. But if you look at it though, the pawn structure is still favors white too, because he's got connected here. Yes, 1 isolated. Black has 2 isolated pawns and 1 connected pawn island. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what if black can survive this. Let's see. Okay. Oh, h8. Rook h8. So, yep. So takes. Yeah. So now we're getting to the bishops of opposite colored situation, because we have knights. The knights are the same, but the bishops are different. So black's going to want to hold the position. He's going to want to trade off these guys, and then get these pawns off, trade it off for those guys, and then sack this bishop for that pawn and draw the game. black's kind of in desperation. White has win-draw chance now. Black has draw-loss. So it's funny. White has always been aiming towards an endgame, either keeping the position closed so that black can't move, or going into an endgame. White wins either way with that. Okay, let's see. Bishop takes knight. Yeah, that was actually an excellent idea. It was an exclam, and the reason we'll talk why taking was a wonderful idea in this situation, because if you notice that White's got an outside pass pawn. This knight could jump around on any color. See, it can go from dark to light to dark to light to dark to light. You know, all these different colors like that. The bishop can only stay on the dark square. So if the pawns can all get to light squares, and the king and knight work together as a double team knockout warrior bunch, they can overpower these two pieces, these two guys. And black has always got to watch this g3 pawn. So I would give probably white maybe a 75% chance to win this if he knows what he's doing. Because this pawn right here is a headache, a toothache for black. And there's no help for him solving his situation. It's going to be super hard to trade these guys off for these pawns now. Because easily, if black tries there, white will just start there. If black tries here, he'll probably just play here, something. They're not going to be traded off all too soon. So the knight comes in, going after the e6 pawn. So also threatening to, I almost forgot, he's threatening to fork and win the bishop and king. So that's always in the air. And if these two pieces can get traded off, this is a thorn. White can then come up and just gobble these guys up. So any trades here favors, these trade of pieces favors actually white. So everything in this situation kind of favors white. It's like, you know, it's gone from worse to horrible. So I would not want to play as white in this situation. I mean, black in this situation. Yep, pawns are on opposite color. There's really, even if he tries to break here, breaks, takes, and white's going to leave his pawn on the light squared. So this bishop is slowly losing its power. It's no longer as powerful as it was when it didn't have a counterpart on black's side. I mean, sorry, white's side. Black had two bishops, remember that? White had two knights. So that was the difference. And this is going to end up being a win. So let's just see how it comes down. D takes and knight d5. White needs one more move. Once that pawn's on g4, there's really, this bishop is like a funny piece that doesn't do anything. It's actually, let's be nice to the bishop. We'll call it a pawn. It's basically a glorified pawn once all these pawns are on the opposite color, because it can't really do anything more to attack the pawns. So it'll just have to be used for protection of maybe a pawn or something. And that's pretty sad when a piece that's 3 pawns goes down to a value of 1. That's pretty sad. Which makes this giant horse probably almost the power of a queen in position wise. King d6. and king c4. And at this point, black resigns. He says that that it's not worth messing around, because let's just say that black tried here. White could just take a second, g4. Why not? You know what? Just finish off all pieces on light squares. What's black gonna do? Okay, let's say he moves here. Yeah. Then now you have to be careful of knight moves. You know what I mean? Even if there's a check, you might even be able to check here. And if trades, the king's gonna have to come over to stop this guy. This comes over, up, comes over, takes, and there's really no way to and then he queens with check. So game over on that one there. And it all started, let's see, let's go back to see where the critical point of the game was. Let me see. This critical point right here. That critical point, that was a critical spot in the game. Let me see here. So he was able to now, this was a critical spot when the bishops of opposite colors. So let's see, where's another one? Oh yeah, that the knight move was critical because of d4. So you have to look at these parts that are important. Queen, a bishop goes back, that's not really important. And that takes, and when the rook comes over, takes. This is a very important part when he takes. That's also critical. So there's like 5 critical points in the game. It's when the bishops of opposite color disappears now. The drawing chance, see you later, it's all over. Because now you have a wonderful position with the king and the knights, and it's going to eventually, once that's played and that's played, it's going to make this bishop out to be, it's going to weigh basically a pawn in count. Okay, with that, let me see, hold on, let me just take a check. I just got to make sure everything's okay. Huh. Okay, good. Okay, I just want to. That's had an error there for a second there. That was weird. Okay, we are going to do some puzzles. Or if you would like to play me, I'm more than happy to play a game with one of you guys. So, or you can help me on here. Or if you have some games you'd like to analyze, I'm more than happy to go through that, and we'll work it out so that we all can benefit from that. So with that, those choices that you guys have, we're gonna start into the puzzles until one of those things is chosen. Let's see. Okay. It's really, this is an interesting position because of there's a pass pawn potential here. Maybe push. If you push, so push there takes check. A rook would come back. Trying to see, is there anything else that would be beneficial? I'm gonna go with that. Oh, takes, and then queen. I should have remembered. Even if he takes there, you could take. Now black's up a whole piece. Tide's turn. You know those are about ideas there. It looked like for a while that white was in the lead, but nope, no siree. Okay. This is. I'd love to take care. The only problem is that there. Is there anything? Trying to think. Let's see. Okay. Man, this is an interesting position for sure. I'm thinking castling. That puts the pressure to, but the only sitch is that no, it can't go there because of the knight. So castling's potentially an idea. I was thinking of knights coming in there. There is a potential castle queenside, which then puts the pressure on the rook and brings the rook out and into the position. There is a potential knight here. Then knight takes knight, queen takes. That attacks that pawn there. But that is an idea there. Oh man. Maybe there might even be knight there too. That's potentially an idea. I'm not sure what to do here. I'm open for any suggestions, guys. And of all things, it's in a 5-minute game. So think of that's pretty interesting for sure. Huh. I'm going with castling queenside for one reason: double attack. Because castling queenside, when you castle queenside, we attack the rook, and then what'll happen is this rook will be able to protect this rook, and I can take the knight. So I'm castling queenside. Some reason I had to get into that zone. Like sometimes you just gotta see it. Look at the whole board. That's one thing that I learned. Just look at the whole board. Analyze the whole entire board. Don't just look at one spot. Okay. Pawn takes rook. Rook takes pawn. Could potentially be a takes the bishop. Yeah, I believe, if I'm not let's see. Taking here, pawn takes, that shuts this. See, the bishop would love to come here and then pin skewer the rook. So, oh, wow. Okay. Uh. Huh. Not sure. Okay, bishop. Alright. Had the right idea, just wrong take of the piece. Not too happy with that. So, okay, if I move my king, this queen's under attack, this bishop's under attack. Yeah, I'm gonna move the king. Sometimes taking looks the best, but it's actually not. Okay, see, I'm trying to see what would be in this situation. There's a piece that's semi-hanging, and this piece protects that piece. So, is there anything that we could do to emphasize that weakness? Let's see. Oh, okay. If we play pawn takes pawn. Let's see, pawn takes pawn. Or let's take a bishop takes. then he would take here, and then the takes wouldn't be possible for the queen. So takes here, and then we win a piece. Excellent. We're back to 1900, guys. I believe that is, oh. Okay. Guess I was too, takedown idea. I should have kept my mind on the prize. Sometimes you can't force what's not there. I like that queen to d 4, because what that does is attacks the knight, the bishop, and this bishop supports it, so they, yes. So that was sweet. Sad it was only 5 points though. Hey, you know what? We're gonna take what we get, right, guys, and be happy with it. I'm not upset. That was 5 points we got. I'm thinking about pawn there, and then knight comes up here, because then the bishop would be unleashed on that. Let's see if that's, oh. Oh, okay, because, let's see. Oh, there's a fork. Totally missed that. That was not, I'm not happy about that. Oh. Okay. Okay, let's see, what do we got here, guys? Let's see if we play pawn. This, let's not calculate. Let's just take a look. Okay. Pawn takes, right? He's going to play here. Then what we're going to have to do is... Okay, now that we have that down... Because what'll happen is if he plays there, we'll just play right there. And then even if he takes here, there's no way for the king to get over in time. That's 14. We love the big ones, man. Yeah. Yes, 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 yes. Happy day. Taking a look at right here, that is an interesting move. That's a fork. It forked the rook and the bishop. So if we moved here, pawn takes, the king would take the rook, and so we'd be up in exchange. Because at that point we're attacking the rook and we can move our bishop, so we're up in exchange. You gotta love it. We're back in the 1900s, 1901. Let's just pull ahead. Let's get some big points now, guys. We'll do a couple more, and then I have to log off for work tomorrow to get some work done in my study area. This right here, and then we take. Okay, we'll do one more. Thinking if we play knight takes knight, pawn takes, rook comes over. Actually, we have knight takes knight. If pawn takes, then takes here. We could take. Knight takes, pawn takes. Trying to see. Let's see. Is there anything that could we could do? There's, see, this bishop over here is hanging. Oh man, right there. Oh wow. Okay, we have to do one more because I want to get in the I want to see in the 1900s. There's a potential fork there. There we go. Okay, we're in the 1900s, so we're still good. A little bit under where I wanted to be. I wanted to be like 1930, but you know what? We're sticking at the 1900 level, so that's good. Appreciate you guys coming on, watching the game about the opposite color bishops, how to actually maneuver from the opposite color into a winning game. Even though you're one pawn up, you got to see how to do that. We did some tactics, so we learned a lot about how to set up forks, skewers, checks, all pins, and everything. So with that, we're going to end on a positive note. Yeah, as Wesley So says, serve the Lord Jesus. And as I say, guys, God bless. And I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a great night. Bye-bye.